Hello friends, welcome back to the internet. I've been so busy playing WoW Classic lately that I almost didn't even notice that the channel is starting to grow again. So that's exciting, thanks to everybody who's been watching. So let's go ahead and get started with yell at me and my staff? Fine, good luck running the office on your own. So I used to work in a small family-owned doctor's office. A couple of years in, they got a legal fight and experienced staff started leaving. Being young and dumb, I wanted to be loyal and ended up managing half the doctor's office. The other half was managed by Brittany. She had a team of 3 that did the work of 6. The company got bought and the new owner came in. He was like Danny DeVito in gold chains and a bad toupee. He was dumb and no one respected him. He screamed constantly about little things at anyone. He micromanaged and didn't bother to understand someone's job before telling them how to do it better. He tried to streamline processes without knowing how they worked, but mostly he yelled. One day, the hardest working person in the entire clinic, a nurse who started every appointment, was a few minutes late. She was a single mother and her kid was sick, so she showed up less than 10 minutes later than usual. Danny proceeded to berate the nurse in front of the entire office, scream about dumb things like being a few minutes late, then strange things like how she wrote dates, then absurd things like how her bedside manner sucked. She'd gotten flowers the day before from a patient because she was so good. When the nurse put in her notice at the end of the day, Danny fired her on the spot, told her to leave and to never come back. I'd been job searching and had actually gotten an offer. I was planning on giving a lot of notice, but couldn't give notice if I'd be fired immediately. I had student loans and was paycheck to paycheck. I grabbed the 2 remaining members of the admin staff and explained that I was going to quit without notice before too long. Brittany understood, and said she too was in the final stages of taking a new job. We agreed that we would quietly all find new jobs, then duck out when it was convenient. We had to quietly let all the other staff know, and each of us quietly started smuggling our personal effects out of the office. I had a start date 2 weeks out, but honestly couldn't give notice without risking my financial health. A week or so later, Danny started screaming about the color of tape I'd used to duct tape down a power cable months before. I'd used orange and yellow to make it more visible, but he said that was unprofessional. I asked him how he'd like me to fix it. Well, that's not my problem, that's yours. I paused for a second and said, I don't think it's my problem. I'm out. I grabbed my small box of desk things as Danny howled at me. You'll never find another job in this town. I own every doctor's office in this county. I don't need you since I got Brittany. Brittany looked at him and said, I'd been meaning to tell you that today is my last day. We packed our things and walked out, as Danny called the cops saying that his employees were stealing things, like their own birthday cards and pictures of their kids. We texted the 3rd employee, who was on lunch, and explained what happened. It sounds like she didn't go back, and without front desk, billing, or nursing staff, a doctor's office simply can't run. I'm told they were closed for almost 2 weeks before they got temporary employees, but had no one to train them. Danny shuttered and resold the business a few months later to the big dog in the industry, which is a charity. Since the books are open, we saw they bought the company, really just the client list, for about 15% less than what Danny had paid for a few months prior. Man, I've always wanted to be part of a mass quitting at a job. It sounds like a really awesome way to just stick it to bad management. You'll never get my business again. I mean, good, we didn't want it. Oh boy howdy, for once I get to tell a satisfying story. So I work in inbound phone sales for a large auto insurance company. People call, demand a quote, get upset when I have the audacity to tell them to buy the policy, rinse and repeat. This jabroni though. I'm just gonna lay out some background to give you all a feel for the kind of guy he was. So he came on the line making a big deal about how he was a former customer, from 10 plus years ago, and I should be so grateful that he was giving us a chance to earn his business back. Despite that, he was also incredibly insistent that he did not want to buy the policy no matter what I told him, and he fought me tooth and nail in giving any information. I swear the man said, everything is the same as last time, a dozen times. I'm sure y'all can guess, nothing was. New address, new car, new wife, new accidents, etc. He was just every salesperson's dream, basically. Now, my sales system is designed to tell me if their last policy canceled with any outstanding concerns. Owe us money, bad risks, etc. But it's rarely anything serious, especially if it's an old account. So when I got this alert, I pulled the old account just to see what was up, and I found something glorious. This man, this fool, had actually been canceled for insurance fraud all those years ago. I read through a few pages of notes, but essentially this guy had claimed damages to his truck he didn't know the source of, took the original claims check, less than $600, and got the damages repaired, wrecked his vehicle in a much more substantial way in the same spot a few days later, tried to state all the damages were from the original incident, and that the claim adjuster was trying to rip him off and wildly underpay him. He even sued the company, and between the body shop owner who fixed the original damages, photos of the original damages, and this man's story that had more holes than Swiss cheese, he very much lost that trial, and we summarily dropped him. We're lenient with most customers. I've insured a man who has just gotten out of prison for intentionally running over his neighbor and smashing his SUV into said neighbor's house before. But we have a policy that if you commit fraud against us, you can never come back. We won't even quote you, not even through the website, and I had the pleasure of telling this man that. It was great to be able to give this jerk a hard no, when so much of the day is usually bending over backwards to make the ignorant and demanding feel special. Now, the tantrum this man threw was incredible. He called me all sorts of names, accused me of trying to cheat him, and demanding I give him a price quote. And I got to say no, at every turn. I got a glare from my supervisor, but even got away with telling him, "Sir, there is no price I could charge you for a policy, because we don't want to have you as a customer after a case of insurance fraud, proven in court of law." Then he broke out the big threat, "If you don't give me a quote right now, you'll never get my business again." And I gotta say, "Alright sir, I'm glad we're on the same page now. You have a great rest of your day." I rarely get to hang up on customers, and even more rarely get to end those calls with a smile. This time was different. This time was better. Man, I know I was just reading this guy's story, but I don't think I've ever heard of an insurance salesman that was this happy about anything before. But yeah, it is kind of funny to say, "You'll never have my business again." It's like the people who try torrenting music, and then they get shut down for it, and then they say, "You'll never get my business again." It's like, you were just stealing from me, that's not business. Next up is, "Won't leave my drive-through until you're served?" Okay. So this one is from over a decade ago, but I still giggle about it from time to time. I was 18, and for some reason, the higher-ups thought it was a good idea to give me assistant manager at this Burger King, or the Dirty Bunks as I call it, I worked at. It's just me and another guy closing the store. It closed at 12 a.m., and it's now about 12:20 or so. The dreaded drive-through signal beeps. I say, "I'm sorry, we're closed." This woman says, "What? It's only 12:20. I say, "Correct, we close at 12. She says, "Well, I just drove all the way from faraway suburb. Do you not have anything left?" He's like, "No, ma'am, everything is tossed in the garbage at midnight." She says, "Well, I'm not leaving until you get me food." I tried to reason with her for a bit longer, but she insisted she was served and continued to get increasingly irate. Now, the store I worked at had a rather large speaker in the back, so the cook could hear our entire conversation. He was not pleased. I asked if he had anything left to serve this woman, and he says, "One sec." I watch as he digs through the trash, covered in the old fryer grease and whatever else have you. He pulls out a crispy chicken patty and an old soggy bun. "Got one." I say, "I have a crispy chicken sandwich." She hums and haws. "Fine, I'll take that." She paid, got her food, and left. I never saw that woman again. I mean, don't go to a restaurant after closing unless you only expect to get garbage. Honestly, I think it would be kind of cool if a lot of restaurants would allow you to come right after close and you could just take whatever garbage you want for free. The problem is, with the way laws work, it's just way too easy for people to sue over crap like that, so sorry, I guess we can never go dumpster diving. A-holes in the bus? Let's forget, then next stop. This happened a long time ago. I was making a bus travel, and behind me there was this group of 4 guys that kept talking really loud, laughing and making jokes since we get on the bus. Nobody were really annoyed because it was afternoon, around 4 o'clock. It was around 10 p.m., and the guys were still loud. People were now troubled by the noise, and a nice lady sitting next to me, in the seat right in front of theirs, asked if they could keep it down because there were people who were trying to sleep. They just started to shout and scold her. She looked at them terrified and returned to her seat in silence. 1 hour later, the bus stopped for a break of 30 minutes. Everybody went to grab something to eat or use the bathroom. After 30 minutes, there was a call on the speakers warning all the passengers to return to the bus because it was leaving. After everybody entered and proceeded to take their seats, there was a huge silence. The 4 a-holes didn't board the bus. The bus started moving towards the road when the nice lady that asked for the a-holes to keep the volume down looked at their seats and noticed the 4 were missing. She said to me, "They are at the stop." I just smiled and said, "Yes." She asked if I was going to warn the driver. I said, "No." Everyone on the bus was smiling quietly. When the bus stopped just a few meters before the road, the doors opened and there came the scumbags, breathless and sweating because they ran about 200 meters waving for the driver to stop. They proceeded to their seats and no single word was listened from then the next 6 hours until we arrived at our destination. You know, it's kind of fun to just have these short little petty revenge stories thrown in here. But man, I cannot imagine taking a long distance bus ride with a bunch of strangers. That's just... I mean, it's bad enough being crammed into a little car with people that you like talking to, but... oh boy. Entitled Parent thinks they rented the whole park. So I'm at a city park with my kids. We've been to this park a bunch. There's one spot where there's a rocky hill, all tree covered, nice and shady on a hot day. There's a playground and pavilion at the top of the hill. We get up there and I immediately notice loud noises, and I'm having to step over cables and extension cords. Someone rented the pavilion and set up not one, but 3 bounce houses around it. Freaking great. So I have to give the disappointing news to my kids that even though they are surrounded by bouncy houses, they cannot play in them since this is a private party, but they are free to go hit the playground. Everyone is cool. I sit on the bench as my kids go to town on the fake pirate ship when I hear, "Hey!" That's when entitled Dad, doing his best to imitate the situation from Jersey Shore, walks up to me and informs me that the playground is closed for a private party. I look at him and inform him that the public park does not close for private parties, and it sounds like he rented the pavilion nearby, which is fine, but doesn't give him exclusive use of the neighboring playground. He storms off and returns with the rental agreement and shoves it in my face, telling me to get my freaking kids and leave. Right, so the rental agreement is very clearly for the pavilion, all for the grand sum of $35 for 4 hours. How could any sensible adult think that $35 granted you exclusive use of a public playground? Moreover, why is it so important for you to have exclusive use to a public playground? So I, again, pointed out to him that he rented the pavilion, not the park, and my kids won't go on his bounce houses, and we won't go into his pavilion. But the playground is fair game for everyone. He begins hurling threats, and I'm weighing just taking my kids and leaving to avoid this a-hole. Then I decide I need to take a stand on principle. So I tell him to F off and proceed to use my phone to find the phone number for the park office. Our county staffs our parks. During the summer months, they employ park rangers, who have peace officer authority. I call the park ranger and tell him that there is trouble up at this shady playground, and they need to come right away. Sure enough, as I'm getting off the phone, Dolph returns with 2 of his meathead friends to tell me that they are ejecting me from the park. No, you're not, and if you touch me, I'm calling the cops and pressing charges. No anger, no rage. With this promise of action, however, one of them kind of widens his eyes and steps back to his friend saying, "Just leave them alone, man." This guy, for some reason, does not want the police coming, and it's very obvious. The ringleader won't back down, however, and tries his best to get in my face, scream and yell. He grabs my arm, I remove his hand. All of this just as I see a ranger pull up. Yell for everyone to step back from one another and come over. This smug guy shoves the rental contract into the chest of the ranger, telling him that I'm trespassing, and he rented this space for the day for his kid's party. Now, normally I don't like posturing by law enforcement, but here it was pretty amusing. The ranger says, "Touch me again and I'm arresting you." He reads the contract. "This is for renting the pavilion. You have use of the pavilion, but the playground is open for public use." Hands it back. "Also, your permit doesn't allow you to set up bounce houses. Where did you plug these in?" The ranger follows the extension cords and sees that they ran them to nearby public bathrooms. There was an outdoor outlet. It was locked. This dude cut the lock off so he could plug in his crap. The ranger comes back with the broken lock. "Did you cut this lock?" It was like that when I found it." "Really? Because it was intact this morning. So some random person cut this lock and you just happened upon it in the last 2 hours?" I guess." Long story short, he let them stay and let them keep the bounce castles because he didn't want to ruin the kids' party. He wrote the guy a citation for the broken lock and the unauthorized power use and banned him from the park for the remainder of the season, after the party. Amazingly, this entire event was lost on my children who barely noticed anything was going on, likely because of compressor noise. I always think it's funny when people get like super nervous and freaked out when there's talk of police showing up. Because like as soon as you see the fear on their face, you're just like, wait a second, you're probably gonna be in a lot more trouble than I think, aren't you? Man, I feel like we've had a lot of pretty good stories lately. But now we've got the question stories. What is a lesson you only had to learn once? What's the story behind it? Never lend anything to your older brother's friend. Case in point, I let him borrow my cool wood baseball bat. After waiting 3 months to get it back, I get it returned split in half. Alright, I'll remember that. I don't have an older brother, but if I ever get one, and if he has a friend, I will make sure not to lend him my wooden baseball bat. If I get one of those too. No matter how much you hate loneliness, it's better to be alone than to be in a bad relationship. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could kind of get behind this one. Like, a lot of people just assume that anything would be better off than what they have. But then you come to find out that it could always be much worse. When I first started a job where I had real responsibility, I learned the importance of having written evidence. I was leading a project and needed approval for a $50,000 purchase. Still above my pay grade at this time. The timing was tight and needed to give the okay within a few hours. I got a verbal, "Of course that was okay, hurry and finish it," from my boss. Well, it turns out my boss's boss did not like it. So my boss denied the fact that he gave me the go-ahead. My company proceeded to drag their feet to pay the $50,000 bill, and I got cursed at by the contracting company and my boss's boss because my boss threw me under the bus. I have since learned to get written approval for everything, even if it says the project behind. I also learned that most people in the professional world will do whatever they need to shift the blame. Man, forget written approval of everything, we're entering the age of where you could just get video approval of everything. Won't it be nice when we can just like record everything we see, and then go back and prove that they actually told you it was okay? Never get in a fight with an inanimate object. It will not get hurt, but you will. I've known too many people that kicked or punched something and broken themselves. Walls don't complain. I mean, technically objects can get hurt, but like it just said right there, they don't complain. As a toddler, I wouldn't stop trying to lick electrical plugs. My mom was so exhausted of preventing me from touching the plugs, she stopped doing it. I managed to lick a plug. Never ever tried it again. I mean, sometimes the hard way really is the only way to learn things. There are plenty of things that people have told me for years, like don't do this, it's a terrible idea. But in my head I was always like, but it looks like a good idea, I still want to do it. I basically just have to put myself through it and get a first-hand experience that it's a bad idea to actually snap myself out of wanting to do it anymore. I was about 11 years old and I wanted a warm, hard-boiled egg. I took the egg out of the refrigerator, peeled it, put the egg in the microwave for about 10 seconds, took the egg out and bit into it. It exploded when I took the first bite. I had a huge blister on my lip for a few days. Not so bright. See, the first time I read this, I thought he was saying that he just pulled a regular egg and put it in the microwave, and thought that that would hard boil it. So I mean, maybe this wasn't as bad as it could have been. Life is kinda weird. You can do everything absolutely right and still end up unhappy. Still trying to figure this one out. Yeah, that kinda leads into what I was going to answer for this question. Which is, never get too comfortable when you think life is too good, because you can always lose it. You know, for most of my adult life, I've been like always trying to find some sort of career path, you know, trying to figure out life and become a real adult. And there was one point where I thought I had found the career of my dreams. I was making more money than I could ever imagine. I had also just met a girl that I was convinced that I was probably going to marry at some point. I thought I had life all figured out. And then I essentially lost that job and the girl left me about a month later. So I was basically back to square one. So yeah, don't ever assume that things will just continue getting better, because it can always turn around. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the stories for today. I've noticed a lot of comments lately talking about their classic WoW experience. So I'm actually playing on Faralina Alliance, which is where Asmongold is playing. I guess today, as in today that I'm recording, we basically had like half the server do a giant raid. We had like a couple thousand people all in one spot, and it was really awesome, but we practically crashed the server. Anyway, here's a video of Faye messing me up playing WoW, so thanks for watching. Faye, I'm trying to play. Laying on the mouse is not helping. Ah, pushing buttons.